Hey, welcome. Today we're going to dig deep, literally. We're going to uncover the incredible story of something we see all the time, but, let's be honest, probably don't think about much. Rocks. So, let's get right into it. Seriously, have you ever really thought about it? You pick up a stone, right? It feels solid, ancient, maybe even kind of boring. But what if I told you that every single one of those stones has this dramatic backstory? A story of fire, immense pressure, and just unimaginable stretches of time. Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore. Okay, so first things first, what even is a rock? Well, at its most basic, it's just a natural, solid thing made up of minerals. Sometimes it's super simple, like limestone, which is pretty much all one mineral called calcite. But other times, it's this complex jumble of a bunch of different minerals, all mashed together to create something totally new. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to look at the basic ingredients of any rock. Then we'll take a trip through the three main rock families: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. Simple as that. All right, section 1. Let's break this down. We're talking about the fundamental ingredients, the design, basically what makes a rock, well, a rock. You can think of this part as us checking out the blueprint before we look at the finished building. Okay, the absolute easiest way to think about this is like our recipe. Seriously, the minerals, they're your ingredients. So, for example, you take some quartz, you add a little feldspar, a dash of mica, you put it all into the right geological heat and pressure, and boom, you've just baked yourself a loaf of granite. Every single rock out there has its own special recipe. And you know the inside of a rock, its structure, that's like a huge clue to its past. It's like being a detective. If you see all these interlocking crystals like you do in granite, that rock was almost certainly molten at some point. If it's got layers you can see, then it was probably built up piece by piece over a long time. And if the minerals inside are all lined up in bands or have no pattern at all, well, that tells a whole other story. A story about some serious pressure, which we're going to get to in just a minute. Okay, time to meet our first rock family, igneous. And the name is perfect, because it comes from the Latin word for fire, and for very good reason. These are the rocks that are born directly from super hot, cooled down magma or lava. Now, the big difference here really comes down to where the cooling happens, and that's all about magma versus lava. See, magma is the molten rock that's still deep inside the earth. It cools down really slowly, which is called an intrusive formation. And that slow cooling gives it plenty of time to grow these big, beautiful crystals that you can actually see. But when that molten rock bursts out onto the surface, we call it lava. It cools down super fast, either in the air or water. That's an extrusive formation, and it means you get tiny little crystals, or sometimes no crystals at all, and you end up with something like volcanic glass, like obsidian. So you can picture igneous rocks as being really hard, dense, and crystalline. But the variety? Oh man, it's incredible. You've got granite, right? That classic speckled rock you see on kitchen countertops. Then there's basalt, that dark, fine-grained rock that makes up a huge chunk of the ocean floor. And then you get something wild like pumice. It's so full of trapped gas bubbles from a crazy eruption that it can literally float on water. How cool is that? All right, moving on to our next family, sedimentary rocks. So if igneous rocks are born from fire, you can think of sedimentary rocks as stories that are built from all the pieces of what came before. We're talking fragments of older rocks, sand, shells, even organic stuff, all of it getting smashed and pressed together over time. And these rocks basically form in two main ways. First, you've got your clastic rocks, like sandstone. These are made from actual physical fragments, bits of sand and pebbles that get cemented together over ages. Then, on the other hand, you have chemical and organic rocks. These are formed from the remains of life itself. Just try to picture it. These vast, ancient seabeds where countless shells and skeletons piled up to become limestone, or these super dense swamps that got buried and compressed into coal. The classic telltale feature of a sedimentary rock is its layers. They're called strata. And each one of those layers is like a page in Earth's history book, built up over thousands and thousands of years. And here's the really amazing part. Because they form by burying stuff, they're the only type of rock where we can find fossils. They're like these perfectly preserved snapshots of ancient life. And that brings us to our final family, metamorphic rocks. The name says it all, really. Meta means change, and morph means form. So these are the ultimate transformers, the rocks that started out as something else. Could have been igneous, could have been sedimentary, heck, even another metamorphic rock. And then they got completely changed by intense heat and squeezing. Hey, remember that foliated structure we talked about earlier? Well, this is where it comes from. When a rock gets squeezed super hard from the sides, all its minerals are forced to line up, creating these bands or layers. That gives you a foliated rock, like gneiss. But what if the pressure comes evenly from all directions? Well, then the minerals just kind of recrystallize in place without making layers, and you end up with a non-foliated rock, like marble. Yeah, these rocks are literally forged deep inside the earth. We're talking immense heat and pressure, which makes them incredibly hard. And their story is all about total transformation. That soft sedimentary rock, limestone, it gets cooked and recrystallized into beautiful, strong marble. Or a simple mudstone, like shale, gets compressed into the hard, flat layers of slate, which is exactly why it's been so perfect for things like roofing tiles for centuries. Okay, so let's recap. We've met the three big families: igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. But here's the thing. This is the big wow moment. They aren't three separate things. They're not these distinct dynasties. No, they are all interconnected in one of the planet's most epic, never-ending stories. And here it is, the rock cycle. You can think of it as the Earth's ultimate recycling program. It's this endless process, driven by huge forces like plate tectonics and erosion. Just imagine, an igneous rock sitting on a mountaintop gets worn down by weather into sand. That sand becomes sedimentary sandstone. Then, that sandstone can get buried and transformed by pressure into a metamorphic rock called quartzite. And that quartzite can get pushed so deep that it melts all the way back into magma, ready to start the entire cycle all over again. It's a process that takes millions and millions of years, and it never stops. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that the ground we're standing on right now, it's not static. It's not just there. It's this incredibly dynamic system. It's like a library full of stories written in stone. And those stories are constantly being erased and rewritten by the unbelievable forces of our planet. So, next time you're out and you see a cliff face or just a pebble on the beach or even the stone used in a building, I want you to take a closer look. Because now you have the tools to read its story. Ask yourself, was it born from fire? Was it built from tiny pieces? Or was it completely changed by pressure? What kind of journey did it have? What chapter of Earth's multi-billion-year-old story are you holding right there in your hand?